Amazing human. It's Jocelyn Tyson, the 2023 World Champion of Public Speaking, and who will also be our keynote speaker at this year's District 2 conference on May 17th at the Linwood Event Center. We are so thrilled to have her and get to know her a little bit before we meet her in person today. And moderating this fireside chat is our very own Kyle Hall, who is also a competitor, a longtime competitor. He has competed in every speech type available. And then in 2003, while representing District 2, took third place in the World Championship of Public Speaking. He now coaches district and semifinal winners to get ready for the World Champion of Public Speaking. So welcome, Kyle and Jocelyn, to today's Fireside Chat. And I am actually just going to hand it over to Kyle so we get to learn more about Jocelyn. Thank you.
Thank you, Anu. Now, Jocelyn, can we have Jocelyn up on screen? So Jocelyn joined Toastmasters in 2021 in New Jersey, and then won the World Championship of Public Speaking in 2023 in the Bahamas, if memory serves. And I remember watching it and thinking, wow, that's a hell of a performance. Great speech. My first question for you is just, how did you find your way into Toastmasters? I know you have a PhD, but how did you find your way into Toastmasters?
Well, Kyle, I have to admit, I think prior to that, I tell the story, it was a milestone birthday I was hitting overall, and I wanted to start to push myself, to elevate, to make a difference for what I saw the next decade that was going to be. And I remember sitting there thinking, I want a new job. I want to start new. And I'm thinking at any age, you can choose to start new if you feel like that's speaking to you. And for me, I wanted to step and embark on a new career path. Still being a pharmacist, but I wanted something where I was able to now speak publicly because I thought I might have a knack for it. And I wanted to work on that and to cultivate that. So as many of us do, when someone starts asking you about public speaking, you start typing in and looking up, well, what about public speaking? And someone mentioned Toastmasters. Mm-hmm. Just like that, I started looking around, started to put in my zip code, find a club. I had a nice little list that I went through, like, okay, nope, not this one. Nice, but no. Maybe I'll come back maybe on Thursday. We'll see. And I found my club, Voorhees Toastmasters, where I started, and I have to admit they are family. And that's how I think most people may feel if you really embrace it, that your Toastmasters group turns around and turns into family.
What was the name of the club again?
Voorhees Toastmasters Club.
Voorhees
in Voorhees, New Jersey, and we're a District 38. So,
Okay. So the next question is kind of a follow on that. You're in your club, they're family, but getting on the road to the World Championship of Public Speaking, that road can be long and involved and tiring. What made you decide to walk this road and stay on it?
As mentioned, okay, I'm going to do public speaking. I'm going to do Toastmasters. I wanted to dive fully in. And so I started out making sure I got a leadership role, became secretary, and then vice president, public relations. And my club kept telling me, Jocelyn, you need to sign up for a contest. I was able to do the sample, sample speech that you would have when you did, I think it was the evaluation contest that we had and for our district. So I was able to do the sample speech for my club. And after that, they kept saying, come on, you need to do another speech. That's a contest speech. You did that. And you know how when it's family telling you you're good at something, you don't really believe them because they love you, and you know, like a cousin that can't sing, but we all say she can sing, but no, she can't sing. That's how I felt. That's how I felt with my club. I said, I don't know, you guys love me, so I don't know. But I decided, my mentor pushed me as well, and she said, let's go for it. And I think you can do it. You have a great content. We need someone to participate. We need people to sign up for the contest. Why don't you go ahead and do it? And I did. I stepped out and went ahead for it.
And how much work was that process of okay, you competed in your club, but then there's getting ready for area, division, district, semifinals, grading a second speech.
Correct. Excuse me. I would say it took work. I changed my speech a little along the way, but for the most part, just small nuances, maybe inflections, slowing down. The overall story didn't change much from when it started. For me, it was working. It ain't broke. If it ain't broke, then why fix it? And for me, it was one of those moments where I realized I had a good story. And in fact, the story, the main one that I had, I came up with that after watching a ton load of the World Championship videos. I binge watched them. I went back and forth. Second place, third place. I was going as many that I could find. I wanted to see if there was a common thread, if there was something that you could say this was how it would work. And for me, when I saw that, for me, I noticed you felt one way, something happened, someone came along, and then you feel different. And that process, if I can tell it the right way, I saw that commonality. Now, mind you, not everyone did that, but I saw that was a common thread. And I remember thinking to myself, well, okay, now I'm going to do this contest. How do I come up with a speech? And I was perplexed for quite some time until I spent some time with my dad. And I'm a daddy's girl through and through. And we went to go shoot pool, billiards, and we're going back and forth. And I remember asking him, like, Dad, I'm doing Toastmasters. I have this contest. He's giving me one idea after the other. And in the middle of the game, I'm pausing as it's his turn. And then I realized he's giving me ideas. I'm turning them down. No, 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 no. And then I realized, wait, I haven't had a turn yet. This man is running the table on me on this game. And he looks over at me and he says, too bad you can't tell him how I'm whooping your butt in pool. I remember thinking to myself, And I remember going up to the register because loser pays and I had to pay. And I'm handing the billiards over and the cashier saying, how did things go? My dad said, you see who's paying? Loser pays. And then he turns to the guy and says, we're going for ice cream later, but no sprinkles. Sprinkles are for winners. And I remember thinking, dang, that's cold. And the cashier said, oh, man. And I remember thinking, don't worry. He's been doing that my whole life. And that's when I knew I had my speech. I had the speech about how I would lose to my dad countless times. He didn't hold back. You had to fight for your win. And when you got it, it meant so much more. And it taught you a lesson that in life, there'll be some wins and there'll be some L's, but how you handle that is key. And in life, when life gets going and gets one issue after another, you hold to some of those little lessons. And for me, that was the speech. I worked on it, condensed it to 7 minutes and took it out there. And for me, that was everything. So I was flabbergasted when they told me at district conference that I had to have a whole new speech. I said, I'm sorry, what? Excuse me, what? It took me forever to craft that one. What do you mean I can't take that one with me? They said, if you make it, because at that time, district, I still had 2 more levels to possibly go. And then, so for me, what do you come up with this world championship speech? How can I top that when I felt so much passion? But I remembered my triathlon and I should attribute my mom. I came home telling her about how crazy that was. And as I'm telling her the story, of course, I use a little bit more colorful language. I had longer than 7 minutes. And I'm relaying to her countless, like, what happened? And she's cracking up. She is laughing. Tears are coming down her eyes. And I'm like, Mom, you don't understand. And then I was this, and then I was that. And she's just crying, laughing. And I went through the whole race. And I knew then, if I can emote that kind of energy from an audience, if I can condense it to the lessons and maybe a few, because I learned a whole lot.
Yeah.
Condense it. We'll see if that might win me. I'll see. And so I was working and made it so.
Wow. Excellent. Excellent.
Mhm.
So how has this journey changed you? How has this journey to and through the World Championship changed you?
It's learned. It's something that I have to admit I've learned to be more adaptable. I've learned to push past the comfort, the comfortable places that we sometimes have. I've been able to be a little bit more adventurous. And I think that more so this to take on new challenges, because this showed me that you can do it, and you have to overcome that inner critic, really, and then we'll always sit there and push past the comfortable and get into sometimes that uncomfortable spaces, because that's where some really big things can happen. So for me, it's been that walking proof that I've been able to lean in on and go, come on, girl, you got this.
Wow. Okay. Um, you don't get to the World Championship of Public Speaking without help.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you've got your club. Where else did you find expertise or help to move you forward?
I would say observation, checking out what has been done in the past. As mentioned, I binged on the World Championship speeches. Also relaying to my mentor and getting feedback that I honestly that I was able to take with me and hold with me and to work and to and pick it apart. I also took on feedback from other clubs. I started taking this thing out anywhere I could, where in terms of feedback, and from non-Toastmasters people. I wanted to know if I had just the fundamentals of a good story. Worried about the uhs, the ums, the vocal varieties, and all the phrases that we use. I wanted just a person that pulled up to their chair and was like, let me listen. And if it was something that they could capture, I was like, oh, you got my attention the whole time. What? That's what I wanted. So to me, it was important to get what would be essentially the worldview. If there's going to be about a contest or moving forward, I wanted what the world thought. So I went around and got as many people as I could. I'm telling you, we waited too long at the Starbucks. I'm like, hey, you got a couple minutes? You got seconds? I mean, to me, I did, because why not? If I could reach from cradle to grave in terms of the people, if it was a good story, that's what mattered. That's the key.
Do you have any idea how many clubs you practiced in front of?
It was five. I wanted five actual clubs, but yes, in my district, I ran around as many as I could before I could. But scheduling would be one thing, but at least five. And then I went to about five other outside organizations outside of Toastmasters.
Okay.
Community centers, wherever I could have a moment. Other people's friends' jobs. It was as many as I could go.
Okay. In my experience, there's a interesting moment when you're standing on the stairs looking at that stage you're about to walk out on, the World Championship. So you've crafted your speeches, you're prepared, you're just about to walk on. What's going through your head, and how do you get yourself in the right mind frame to go out there and do your best?
I remember, I'll never forget. We were mic'd up by threes. So we're in the back of the World Champion stage. Already it's like 2,000 people. It's just this energy that it's hard to describe. I had never, mind you, this is my first contest. We're talking about at best, and at that time I was doing a lot of it via Zoom. I did area, division, district recordings via Zoom. I had only done the contest live in front of my actual club. This is the largest crowd I've ever been in. And I'm telling you, when I say that pressure was on, we were mic'd up. I was number 3. And I remember Anastasia, she was number 1. She was the Bohemian home favorite. And she came on and she had like this confidence. It was, I remember seeing her when she came down. She came out with these finger guns. And it was like, yeah, that's how you do it. And I remember thinking like, oh man. And then the second one, Miriam Ghani, she's walked up and she's poised and she's confident. And the only thing that she was walked up by the person in backstage because she was blind. Technically, she's blind. And so she's being walked up. And so she goes on and she's poised. She has an elegance and a grace about her. And you hear the small bell that dings because she doesn't have a light. And as she's speaking, it's just she emotes from the audience and her story about overcoming her loss. And I remember being back there, and I promise you, all of a sudden, panic started to sit in. I mean, good panic. It just came in. And when I tell you, I started to, it was just all of it coming on at once. I would love to say that I was demure. I was mindful. I started doing soft breathing techniques. If anything, it was almost as if I'm going to black out. All I could think was, I'm going to black out. Oh God. And I'm thinking, I don't deserve to be here. And I remember thinking, I'm not good enough to be here. This is my first contest. What are you doing? And I felt like, okay, it's coming. It's coming. And I remember thinking, I'm going to faint. And the woman that was backstage that helped Miriam, she came over to me. She must have seen that I was in distress. I must have had some sort of, she grabs my hands and she leans in and she says, breathe. And for me, okay. And I started to breathe. It was in that moment I was able to center myself. And it was almost as if the inner critic in me let its hand off my neck. And the inner go-getter said, come on, that's what you got to get out there and tell these people about. That this happens all the time and people are probably feeling the same way. That's a message right there. That you have that inner critic that's beating you up inside, but you got that inner fight in you that you can get out there and do this. Now, come on. Let's go. And I remember thinking, okay. So I would say to anyone, yes, have that center point, because if that woman wasn't there, I don't know what I would do. But I remembered she was that lifeline that needed to be there. That was provided to me. And I would tell anyone that if you may not have it, try to pull that inner peace. Breathe as best you could.
Thank you for sharing that.
Welcome.
How has your life changed since winning the World Championship of Public Speaking?
I would say it's changed in opening doors.
Okay.
I believe that I'm working. I'm still working. I'm on my level. I'm in my second path. I'm on level 1 in engaging humor, and I want to work and cultivate that. However, though, I do believe that it's been able to open doors with the World Championship, and it's been able to push me forward and allow me to really work and perfect on the craft that is public speaking. And to me, the biggest thing is also the networking, the amount of people that have been able to just be kind, to reach out, to connect, and Toastmasters, the world. It's so bigger than just my, just my district. It's being able to meet people like you and this district, to be able to connect, and just seeing how, and that's continued on.
It's amazing, especially because your first, correct me if I'm wrong, but your first experience in experiencing Toastmasters International Nature was going to the convention where you were competing.
Correct.
Yeah, that's a real eye-opener to walk in and find people from Australia and Belgium and Malaysia and.
Oh, yes. I would encourage anyone to try, go to an international conference, because there's this very beautiful ceremony that they open up with the flags and the announcements. It's just auspicious. It's just like so grandiose. It really makes you think like, wow, Toastmasters touches across a very wide range. And we're a huge demographic. So, and
it's amazing to meet somebody who is from a different culture, uses a different language, and yet they're still a Toastmaster.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a challenge, right? Yes. English is not your first language, but you are here doing speeches. and expanding your vocabulary. It's to me, it's amazing.
So have you received any controversial advice about how public speaking works or how to get yourself ready for the World Championship?
Controversial. I'll say this. The biggest controversial thing that I think has popped up and has had some serious discussions, and this has been through some of the workshops that I've been conducting in some of the other districts and around the world, is authenticity when it comes to your stories. And is it okay to lie or embellish or construct a story that is not your own as if it's your own in order to do what stories do, which is ability to connect and to work your point better? And I remember it started such a huge debate. And for me, I'm not a fan of I'm okay with embellishing, right? If you had a story happen on Monday, but the story really was on Sunday, that the core of the story, or your brother was there, but it sounded better saying your cousin. I don't mind the piecings of it, but as long as the fundamentals are there. Were you really there? Was that you? To me, is the most important thing. But I'm not a fan of creating a story just to have it fit and it be your own. I think it's okay to just clearly say, I'm going to give a story about someone else. It's okay to me to say, this is a story about Joe. Let me tell you about Joe. And then give Joe's story, as opposed to saying, I experienced, when we all know it was Joe that went through that. So that's where I find that can be controversial when you go into authenticity of stories.
Yeah, I've had that discussion too. And my point of view has always been speeches need to be 98% true.
Yeah.
And I've heard people who've made up stories and you can tell.
I feel like you can. Yeah. You have a passion in you when you're telling something. It's almost like lying on the witness stand, and like you can tell it 15 million times, but when it's facts, it's facts. You don't waver. But when it's all embellished, it comes off.
Yeah. Okay. So that brings us to somebody in your club is thinking about competing. Somebody who's new. What advice do you give the newbie who's thinking about entering the competition?
Absolutely. Do it. Do it. Good old fashioned Nike said it best. Go ahead and do it. Because one thing I would say that I learned as a newbie when I was doing the contest and not having had the coaching, not having had any experience, is it's about your story. And it's in 5 to 7 minutes, you're able to convey what's impacted you or might have changed you or something that was relatable. It's 5 to 7 minutes. And they're not asking you to stand down and give your accolades, your accreditation, who you mentored under, who was able to coach you. None of that matters. How many years are you tenured? Are you DTM? Those are all fabulous things. But at the time of a contest, it is just you and your 5 to 7 minutes and your story. Don't underestimate how impactful your message may be and how it may reach a multitude of people. So I would say, hands down, get out there, do it. And it changes you. When you have to prepare for a contest, it's a little bit more work that's involved. It's paying attention to time, right? You're streamlining, you're cutting, you're taking this out, you're sweeping that out. Did you need that? Did you want to hear that?
Yeah.
Sense. And to me, I think it really does help to perfect and take you up that next extra level when it comes to elevating yourself within Toastmasters.
Okay. I want to ask Anu, have we received any questions that you wanted to convey?
No, we haven't. We probably have time for one more question.
Okay. This is not something that Jocelyn and I discussed, but Jocelyn, you had an interesting challenge. You went from Zoom to live.
Oh yeah.
and Zoom to live in front of 2,000 people. And I would like to know what the difference was. I mean, besides the panic of the 2,000 people, what was the difference in your presentation? What did you have to change to do that?
What I should have changed is the better question.
Okay.
What should I change? Because you are correct. You wind up, but one thing, yes, your placement. Where are you? When you go to land and you're going to talk about, okay, if I'm going to flip over, if I'm going to show them the swim, I need to be here. I need to be over here. And by the time I get here, I need to now flip and go here. If I'm going to, the placement of your body to me was one of the first things that you have to make into account. The second thing, and I never really realized this until I started taking it out, and what you think is funny and what someone else thinks is funny may not exactly transfer over. And you don't realize you're stepping on your own joke. But the saddest part is you have to, because you only got 7 minutes. And though I would have liked to sit down and absorb all the laughs and get all into it, like, yes, eat it up. No, I had 7 minutes. And all of a sudden I had prepared for the amount of feedback, which I was grateful for, but I had never prepared that would take that much laughter and that I'd have to keep on rolling. And I thought that was the one thing I wish I had shaved off some time for, because I did not realize just a few people chuckling is one thing. When you have 2,000 people laughing, it takes a while for it to die back down to a reasonable move on.
Yeah.
I stepped all over my jokes. I stepped all over them.
The laughter takes longer with a larger audience. Yeah. So
that would be the biggest one.
Okay. Somebody asked me this question, so I'm going to ask you this question. You're getting ready for the World Championship. Do you ever stand up on stage and have your mind go blank?
At that time, of course, it hadn't happened during the contests in any of those, but it has happened in my time with Toastmasters. As a matter of fact, it was actually my first speech in person, and I was at the club. We were in person, and we were at a pub. I remember, and it was like this NBA weekend playoff. So people were cheering for their teams at the pub we were at, and we had a small room off to the side. I promise you, as soon as I stood up and as soon as I started hearing the cheers, my brain sat down. And it was like, no, I'm sorry, no. And I remember thinking to myself, oh goodness, they're looking at me. And I could see people looking at me for the first time. I'm seeing people look at me while I'm speaking about, in this case, it was about sleep and actually how sleep impacts, your body. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm lost. I remember sending myself, looking down at my feet, and I had to pull it out. It was painstaking, but I eventually wound up moving forward. But I would tell anyone now, it's okay to say, I'm sorry, what was I going to say? Because I think that creates a certain connection and a human aspect when we speak. Just come out. Your audience actually goes, oh, good, it happens to me too. I get lost all the time. I walk in a room, forget what I came in there for. Oh, good, he's normal. And people wind up relating to you as a speaker that way. So I would encourage anyone, just come out and just say, okay, you guys, where was I? But then,
yeah. And they really appreciate the fact that you had the stick-to-itiveness to stay there and say that.
Yes.
Pick up that thread and continue. They really admire that. It helps you connect with the audience. Jocelyn, we've taken our 30 minutes. This has been a joy and a pleasure. I've loved meeting you and getting to know you and seeing some of my own experience and your experience. So I'm going to hand control back to our District 2 Program Quality Director, Anu Jonikan.
All right. Thank you so much, Kyle. And thank you so much, Jocelyn. This was amazing. And I actually had the privilege of seeing you in person give your winning speech. And it was really neat to be able to hear some of the behind the scenes types of things. I thought that was fascinating. And so many of you can actually see Jocelyn in person as well on May 17th, as she is our keynote speaker at our District 2 conference at the Linwood Event Center. So please be sure to purchase your tickets and get to hear more from Jocelyn. You may be able to get to sit with her as well. And we also have Emerald Elites package here. So if you bring 4 or more of your club members, you get to have a free quarter-page ad in our program. But hurry up, we only have 5 spots left. It's been widely popular. And then also, we have club raffle baskets. So make sure to show your club spirit, create a raffle basket for the conference, and then you can drop off your completed baskets at either an area contest or a division contest. And that wraps this up. And thank you so much again. Thanks. This has been a pure joy, Jocelyn and Kyle. I loved all the questions and hearing all of the feedback that in all the behind the scenes types of things. And so we'd love to hear your feedback. Please use that QR code there, and I'll also send it up as a follow-up with a link. But we really appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you in May, Jocelyn. Thank you. Bye, everyone.